you all for coming. I just want to give a really brief purpose, the origin behind this. I'm a commuter. I go to Grand Central. I pass the Gray Bar building actually literally thousands of times. And one time I got invited to try Global. I came up to this floor and like, oh my gosh, what this is amazing. Okay, and then I found out about this organization and what they do, and met briefly Leo and a Brazilian. And I said, yeah, I got to have an excuse or some purpose or some reason that ties into what the chamber does, which is to let's promote trade, investment, understanding between the community here and there. And so I said, we got to do an event. So that's the origin of this, and I have to really be thankful to Leo for granting us this really amazing space to have a conversation where I think that we learn a little bit about people, we learn about what it is for Brazilians to do on a cross-border basis in the U.S. and in Brazil. And so we've assembled a good group, and with those opening remarks, I turn it over to you.
All right. Bem-vindos, senhoras e senhores. Vou falar em inglês so that my Peruvian friend can... By the way, we have... do they actually have a soccer team in Peru? I can't remember. Do they? Do they still play soccer? Oh yeah. We have some expensive seats right up front here, by the way, if you're standing in the back. So welcome to our business home. My name is Leo Russell. I was born of an American mother, a Brazilian mother, in the Midwest here. She was here, they now would call her an undocumented alien. She was here working at a cocktail restaurant or place. And she met my dad, and 4 kids later, I'm the oldest. He had the misfortune of passing away when I was 7, leaving her with 4 kids, broken English, no college degree or anything like that. So we kind of stumbled through the American welfare system, and finally they invited us to leave the country. And we did. So she took us to Sao Paulo, and I ended up going to the American school in Sao Paulo because I was born here. As you guys know, if you're lucky enough to be born here, you are an American citizen. So as a baby, she stood me up, she held me up for my passport picture, and that document, which I still have, got me into the American schools in Brazil and opened up a life of fortune for me, both from a Brazilian perspective, because she did take us back to Brazil, a country that I love and adore, and the American facet. So I finished high school and came to school here, was able to matriculate in a college in California. Decided that I was going to marry the first young lady who condescended to date me. And it was, listen, it took me a year of begging, and I got my first date, and I'm now celebrating my 32nd wedding anniversary with an American. My only misfortune was I tried to trick her into moving back to Brazil, and she went down and said, I love it, but I got to go back. And she came to New York, and I followed her. And today and I'll fast forward, you don't need to hear every chapter of my life. But I have 3 wonderful kids, all of them adults now, so they can drink legally and won't get arrested. Kind of a foreign concept for you Brazilians, because I was drinking when I was 12, at my father's knee. What we do today, so you are in our event space. As Ted said, we have the top 2.5 floors of this very old building. This building used to be the personal residence, the apartment of the guy who founded the Gray Bar Company. His maid's quarters are upstairs in a quirky little space, so we're in the process of renovating that. His greenhouse is back there. So we decided to just turn this into event space. We do this, we have our meetings here, we conduct interviews. I'm in the business of staffing. So that's one way of describing that in Portuguese, I believe they call it terceirização. It's a lot more complicated than that here in the United States. We are now the largest, because I'm Brazilian, by the way, I'm a minority in this country. So we're now the largest minority staffing firm in New York. We're the 4th largest minority-owned firm in New York, including Goya Beans and some of the other big ones. We're the 14th largest staffing firm in America. And the moral of that story is finding work for people in a $17 trillion economy, or now $19 trillion, does not suck. It's a very happy business. We have about 150 people here. I have another several offices across the country with another 150, and we're in 5 countries, including the United States. So Brazil, of course, we struggled in Brazil, I have to admit, in the last 6 years. I grew up, as you did. Nothing could have predicted the last 6 years. But we're in India, Canada, the UK, and the United States. And we're anxiously and ambitiously hiring people anywhere else. So if you know of anybody, let us know. We're actively hiring. It's an honor and a privilege to have you here this time. Ted has put together a wonderful panel. My people will be running around, and after this event, I'm not hard to find. You can hit me on LinkedIn, you can Google me, please don't. And my name is probably on these things. But I would love to meet you individually to the extent you have an interest in our business or you think I might be interested in your business. I have a policy of accepting every drink I'm offered. So, so thank you very much. Ted, I'll toss it back to you. I think you're going to introduce him.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
What we have here, and I'm going to let we have here Marcel Arins is just talking. Amazing, his English is better than mine. Here with corporate development for Neoway, a big data analytics subscription platform, which he will explain. But I think we have Tiago, who is related to live music and demand for that, and putting a concept together. A very interesting platform there. And then finally, Borges works for Zana as a sound branding company, which I've learned about, but she'll explain a little bit about that. And I think really the idea is for them to talk to themselves. Leo, I don't know who's got a more compelling story than Leo, but you could try. And just about your business a little bit. And then really, I think the idea is to talk about what it is, to be a Brazilian trying to do business here with a business there, and just share experiences that you think the crowd might find interesting. So why don't we start? I'll start with the top list. Marcel, why don't you give us your thoughts, if you will.
Sure. So I'm Marcel Arins. I'm with Neoway. I'm one of the founders of this.
If you want to stand up. Yeah. He's actually, maybe he doesn't need to, but yeah.
I'm Marcel Arins. I'm with I co-founded a company called Neoway. It's a big data analytics company in Brazil. We started in 2010 collecting data from construction permits to try to help manufacturing companies to sell for buildings. So ceramic tiles, we kind of mapped out every buildings that were being built in Brazil and to find the next best customer for manufacturing companies. And at the time it was Portobello. We just started with one company. And it was successful. It was a successful project. So we had a happy customer in 2010. There's a lot of things that happened after that. I started as an engineer creating products, and at Neoway we work only with software and trying to help our customers. We never thought that we would be in the US. We never thought that we will receive any investments. That was not a mentality at the time. That's one thing that I think that helped us. We didn't know what a term sheet was, or it's very common for US companies, American companies. Oh, let's look for the next venture capital firm to help us. We didn't know any of that. We knew technology, we're very good at it, and we started focusing in one customer, and we took with that customer for over a year. That was very challenging for paying the bills, but finally we got more customers and we started to grow. Now we are in Brazil, 600 enterprise companies that are our customers, from 3M, Volkswagen, Mercedes, all big ones, Itaú, you name it, it's almost all of them. And what we do is pretty much find the right data for their businesses in two ways. One is to help them sell better. So collecting this construction permits for manufacturing was one way, or trying to find a restaurant that Kraft Heinz can sell ketchup is another way. Or for retail, for banks in general, we help them with their compliance, especially onboarding new customers. KYC, so knowing their customer before signing them. Everything regarding data in that space. I think so. That's an overall Neoway. We got accepted by Endeavor, so a lot of you probably know that, and suddenly we started to receive those term sheets and things like that. People willing to invest in our company, and that was a new concept for all the founders. But that sounds very interesting. They will pay us for equity, and we're going to receive money and still invest in the business and try to grow the company. So that was our learning curve. We received investments from Marcel Partners, venture capital from Silicon Valley. After that, we started to learn more about it and grow the business. So the business grew a lot in Brazil. We're happy. We started to make money out of it. Our investors were happy. And we thought, okay, now the next round is what? It's growing in Brazil. Is that enough market? Maybe not. But that was our first hypothesis, was never coming to the US. Even though that was our first hypothesis, we tried hard to raise more money to invest in the Brazilian market. We found out that their valuation compared with other companies that do exactly the same in the US was 10 times lower. And that was enough motivation to come to the US. Now the company here has 8 customers. We're growing from $44 million in recurring revenue. 2 are coming from the US, so it's a very small business. So this is an overview of Neoway. I hope I can.
Just one quick thing is, would you say, what is the advantage, your presence here, what does that do? I mean, you do software, right? But what is the value of being physically you here, your firm here?
So if you want to be a global player, you need to be in the US. So pretty much this is what we learned. We have tried. Remember, we collect data to give this data to companies to try to sell. So imagine, to supply that. So the example of Kraft Heinz is very good. If you take restaurants, what we do is we tell them that restaurant that is today is not your customer. If you knock on their doors, they will probably buy this amount of ketchup from you. This is what I need to do. Being in Brazil, how I will tell them about restaurants in America, right? It's hard. And the other one is trying to do KYC, anti-money laundering for banks. And I came to New York 2 years ago after living in DC with the hypothesis that our product will be appreciated in the American market. I focused on the banks because I thought, okay, banks, there are a lot of banks in the US, we know what they're doing, but we have a very good product. So that was my first hypothesis. Very frustrated. The time for closing a deal with banks in the US, the same in Brazil, takes lots of time. So the first learning is that you need to have several hypotheses to test. And I tested out the second one, that is, okay, can I replicate this, calculating how much ketchup a restaurant can buy in the US? And even though there's a lot of marketing companies, technology companies, Experian, every type of data company in the US, I think it was a little pretentious of us thinking that we can compete in that market, but we tried it, just one more hypothesis. And we started to close deals. And it needs to be here. There's one of the concepts, so we started to learn what it needs to be global or in Brazil versus what needs to be localized. And being a technology company, data is very local. So if we're talking about restaurants, you need to have a data team focusing in the US market. You need to have salespeople here in the US. But culture, it's a global culture. I cannot have a different culture for my team here. So I hire people based on culture. This is one thing that I learned. It needs to be that way. Some challenges from small challenges like meetings. Meetings here in the US, 10 a.m. is 10 a.m. right? You know that. In Brazil, it might be 10:15 or 12. For me, it was okay to manage that. I started, but it's an iterating model. You need to tell them that this is a serious thing. You need to learn how to be a global company. But for employees here, now we have, we're growing. We're going to be 20 within some month, and for them to understand that this happens in Brazil. People are a little bit late. This is just one thing. It's very true, unfortunately, and this is one challenge. Other challenges are usually related to culture, and this hypothesis thing. And other things that we learn is we thought that you need to be very American. You need to talk Trump language. You need to be super aligned culturally with the country. They will never accept someone speaking poor Portuguese and trying to sell technology to them. This is not true at all. The US is definitely very accepting in terms of technology from other places. They're skeptical, but very pragmatic. It's way faster to close a deal here than it is in Brazil. Within 6 months in New York, I had meetings with C-level that I will never have in São Paulo. So this is another thing that is very good to be here. If you people are always looking for the next bigger fish, so they accept to have meetings with the Brazilian startup. That was a good learning to have.
Okay. Excellent. Tiago is our music guy, or cool guy, who works with bands, you know, maybe we can get you autographs if you want, or CDs. But anyway, 1, 2, please, interesting story.
So my story is basically the same as Marcel, but it would just change everything for artists, fans, and promoters. Because now we are a platform for like big data, and we help promoters and artists based on the behavior of the fans, where they should go play, how many people will show up at the concert, what size of venue they should book, what is the price of the ticket. And it's crazy how similar, and I don't know, they're like a technology company for like data this way, like from Brazil, can come to the US and succeed. And I think it's not a coincidence that I think in Brazil, it's so hard for you to sometimes to start a business that you start it, like you need to know a lot from your customer, and then when you come here, you say maybe, oh, I was so worried that my business was not going to thrive that year. Then you have like a better environment, and then you can like compete. But basically, our story started in 2010. Me and my 3 partners, we were working in different parts of the entertainment business, from TV production to labels, and one of them used to do live concerts, promote live concerts. And there was in Rio at the time, there was not many international acts going to play in Brazil. They would go to South America, sometimes they would go to Chile and Argentina, but they would start skipping Brazil because it was a very tough market for promoters. Well, there was like a case right before our first concert that a band was gonna play in Rio. The promoter paid $50,000 for as an artist fee, had to pay all the other expenses, and like 20 people showed up at the event, and it was a small promoter, so he stopped doing concerts. But every time that happened, we would talk with friends and see, like, there was not much social media at the time, but we would see that, oh, I didn't know about this concert, oh, it was too expensive, or sometimes like nobody would know the band, and he just paid the wrong artist fee. But we saw that there was an opportunity there, and we had this band from Sweden called Mike Snow that was coming to South America and was not going to play in Brazil again. And we saw that some friends were traveling actually they were going to play São Paulo, but not Rio. So we saw that some friends were paying like 10 times more the ticket to the concert ticket to fly to São Paulo, stay in a hotel, and go to the concerts, going more to festivals, sometimes traveling to Buenos Aires or to Europe or US to see concerts. And we saw that maybe there was a demand for that, but it was not well marketed or negotiated, or basically the promoters were tired of losing money for so many times on a risky business. And so we knew the agent for the band by one of our founders. And we asked, why is he not coming to play in Rio? They were like pretty big. The name of the band was Mike Snow. They were pretty big at the time. So why they're not playing Rio? Oh, no, none of the promoters wanted to make the concert, but they really want to play in Rio because going to South America and not going to Rio, they basically want to promote them. And they say that if we're able to get like $10,000, they will go and they won't charge you for hotel, equipment, anything else, just $10,000 to cover the costs, and they will play there. And then we said, oh, we had a friend that is the promoter at Circo Voador, which is a 3,000 capacity venue in Lapa in Rio. And we told him, look, we got you a very good deal. You can book the concert for $10,000 and then you can make money. And then he said, no, I'm not going to spend any more cent or any dollar in any of these artists. And then we started thinking and we had the idea, okay, why don't we divide this $10,000 into 100 tickets of $100? And if we sell, I think it was about 900 tickets, all the people that chipped in on this first 100 tickets of $100 will go for free. And as soon as we sell this 100, the concert is confirmed. If we don't sell, the concert doesn't happen. And then we send an email with my personal PayPal link at the end. And because we thought the PayPal could refund with no tax, no fees in 60 days, so that fixed that was a good coincidence. And then we sent an email to 100 friends asking them to share the link so that we could make the concert happen. And then in like 12 hours, we got everybody. There was like brands that wanted to sponsor. The 100 tickets were sold. The regular tickets started, and they started selling super well. So the concert ended up happening. The booking agent put us on a Monday because they didn't. He was until the band played. He was not believing that was happening. That these crazy fans were doing that. So they put us on the Monday, like thinking that we would cancel and the concert wouldn't happen. So they played on a Monday for 1,000 people. Everybody that chipped in first ended up going for free. And it was something that until today, when we do, like we now did more than 200 live events in different parts of the world. And it's a big platform with like 4 million demands. But it's still the idea, the thing that we saw in that first concert, that the fans felt that they were part of putting that together instead of just going passively and maybe complaining about the line in the bathroom or that it was too expensive. They felt that they were part of that. And we see that until today in all the concerts that we do. We don't promote other concerts outside of Brazil. We have a platform that connects the artists, the promoters, and the fans. But every time the events happen, we still see that, and we see on the videos and people that go, that there's still this feeling. So after that, the promoter that used to bring Justin Bieber and Lady Gaga, he had a band that was going to play in São Paulo called Bela Sebastian. And he asked us, oh, can you do the same? Because I like the model that you did. And then for that, we created kind of like a blog that had like an empty mosaic with and when people would buy the crowdfunding campaign, they would put their pictures. And it was again another success. This one was sold out, so we made money, the band made money, the promoter that was afraid. When he asked us, I just don't want to lose a lot of money, so just make sure the concert happens, that there's enough people promote. There's a very low, how do you say, like, bar for this to happen, and it ended up was sold out. It was super successful. And then for the next year, we brought more than 15 international acts, like bootstrap, no investment, just because the agents started knowing, oh, there's a promoter in Rio that is doing this crazy stuff, but I don't know what's happening, so let's go for that. And that helped. The concert in Rio helped make more sense in terms of like economy of scales for artists to come to South America, because then you have like a kind of like a sure shot in one place, and then you can like share all the expenses with the other concerts. So I think it was in terms of growing, I think that was part of the business too. And then by the end of 2011, after all these concerts, we already had a business, we had a website, we had a mosaic, and everything happening, everything working. We started thinking, okay, how can we scale into a proper business? Should we do more concerts? Should we leave promoters to use our platform too? And then we got approached by a digital accelerator from Brazil called 21212. And they are partners, they have partners here in the US and in Brazil. And 21 is because of the Rio telephone code, and 212 because of the New York code. And they came to us and say, oh, I think your business makes a lot of sense in the US because the live events space there is also super broken. Everybody hates Ticketmaster, nobody likes to pay those fees, the events are not happening. And then we said, okay, this guy is crazy. It's so hard to do it here. Imagine going to the US without knowing anyone. Similar to what you said, or what can we go there and do? But then we went into their 6-month accelerator program, and we met with mentors from the US and from Brazil to build our business plan. And with time, we started seeing that they were a little bit, they were right. So we applied to, during this period, we applied to the TechCrunch Battlefield Disrupt, which you can see, I think, on Silicon Valley season 1 on HBO. They had a mock-up of that. And we didn't know about anything about startups, about investments. We know about like doing the business and the concerts. And we applied, and we're the first Brazilian company to get accepted to speak on the stage and compete with other 19 startups that they selected, mostly from the US, to present at their event in San Francisco. It was back in October 2012. So we were super happy with that. We went there, we presented, and then we were able to close our first round of funding. Right after that, with like there were Brazilian investors, but initially started with the US investors that were there, and we were able to open the company here in the US in 2013. And then we started, like I think in terms of like what you said, in terms of like how the business changes from coming to Brazil into like where the promoters doesn't have access to capital, very high interest rates. They rely a lot on the crowdfunding for the concert to happen. Here we saw in a way it was similar, but on practical terms, to make it start, it was super different because, okay, like I can have access to capital, but that is not the bigger thing, but I want to know the fans and I need that into more scale. So here, during the first year, we're able to evolve into a platform that is the same one that works now, that any fan can demand any artist anywhere in the world. We have a button called Demand the Show, and when the fan demands, you get their name, their email, and the location, and of course, which artists they get, and we get a little bit more information once they are inside of the platform. So age, gender, what brands they like, what artists they demanded, how many concerts they are going. So with that information, as the database grew, we started to get very precise into determining for the promoters and the artists where they should play, how many people would show up, what is the pricing. And now the platform works like that. We have 4 million demands all across the world. We did more than 200 concerts in the US, in North America, Europe, and South America. There was like some band, the first artists that we started doing in the US, one of the biggest different things from the business in Brazil from here is that only 10% are musicians. 90% are YouTubers, influencers, Instagram celebrities. They're doing their tours to meet their fans, to speak, or to do one of them is like a makeup artist, so he does like, and it's crazy because they do this for like 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 fans in a way that is similar to the musicians, but I think it's kind of like the new generation of that, because the musicians have the managers, the booking agent, the label, and then the artist himself. So it was always like, and with these guys, it's just them. Sometimes they do everything, or if these teen YouTubers, it's just their parents that manage them. So it's super easy. In one day, it's all set up, and we saw that our time was way more rewarding by working with them. And I think that's basically the story so far.
Well, you say now, actually, the common theme seems to be that it's really hard to do business in Brazil, okay? And maybe easier to do it here.
Yeah.
Which is, interesting comment, okay? And maybe, Candida, I learned, you mentioned it, I learned a little bit about sound branding, which is, anyway, but I'll let you take over from here.
I want to say that I'm so happy to be hearing about Brazilian expertise being brought, so it's good to hear this. That's what we're just doing since last year. I'm bringing a company from Brazil named Agency Zana, and we are one of the biggest cases of sound branding in the world. Few people know that the Rio de Janeiro subway is considered like the innovator in creating this first strategy as a public space on sound branding. So we won this international award in 2013 from Audio Branding Academy in Germany, getting this project very well known in the world. So some years ago we got Vienna asking us to replicate the model that we created for Rio de Janeiro subway there, and we started thinking, wow, there's something going on here that we created that is so unique. that is so important, and the world is needing this. So I proposed Zana, that is the CEO of the company, to have the opportunity to bring this abroad. So since last year, I brought the company here, and I'm developing the business here as a baby Brazilian company here, facing all the challenges of starting in the States, and also, especially, the market that I found in New York that is not made only of American companies. So a lot of the contacts we did here is of companies outside of the US. So we are facing that challenge of, do we open a company here in other places? And that's how the partnership with Pride was so interesting, of how to be able to be like kind of a company that works in different companies in different countries. How to make this possible, because the bureaucracy kind of stops us from being able to be a gypsy company. Let me talk a little bit about what is sound branding. I'm coming back a little bit in my life also, my childhood. I'm not from São Paulo, I'm not an engineer. I'm from the inner of Bahia, I come from a family of farmers. My background is in arts, I'm a musician. I came to New York first time in 2005, wanting to launch a career here. And for the last 20 years, I have been putting my career as a musician in the world. Also working a lot with universities. That's why nowadays I'm taking a PhD, very inspired by the work we do in Zanas, in the UK, in the School of Arts, Design and Architecture, which is very aligned to what we do in sound branding. So what we do is that some years ago, when I came to New York, I was thinking on a way how to be an artist in a profit way, while I'm putting together the Tree Foundation here, how to make this something that can be possible in the world, and at the same time bring some artistic approach to the world. I remember coming to New York and walking the streets, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so cold and so dry. How can we touch this a little bit with some affection, with some warmness? And so I started like studying also about marketing and branding, because as musicians, we are hired a lot to work for jingles, for TV programs, things like this, but always not in the strategic side, always in the production side. So I was like trying to invert the process of how do I make my own project and make this work in the way that I believe. So I started working and studying about this. Since I got to know about Zana, Zana is a very known branding company in Brazil, and she was working with the two things that I loved, that was sound and branding. So I decided to create my own sound branding company, because she was not answering my message on Facebook. So finally she got to answer that. No, she didn't. I met her in a conference. So we were both talking in a conference, and I got to know her, and I said to her, look, I'm going to open a company just like yours. And she said, okay, wait. And talk a little bit about it. So I mentioned to her that what I was thinking about, what I was developing, and she said, okay, so let's be partners. So we started like developing this partnership, and the great foundation of this company is based on the marketing of perfection. So how we make fans of brands. So how we connect the two things. And we created a very nice portfolio for the last 10 years. So we were the first company to work with projects in this level in South America. And so we got to really big brands, like we make the sound of Banco do Brasil, of Itaú, of Vivo. And also we created a very special project for transportation. So we have, nowadays we have all the cases of Rio de Janeiro subway, as I mentioned before. Now we spread it also to São Paulo, to Bahia, and also all the airports in Brazil. Infraero is something that has our projects also. So we have a very successful method of how to make a brand sound warm, even if in a B2B relation or a B2C relation, because we also work inside the company and in their relation to the world. So it's something that all of us here there in the company, we are all artists, so we created a way how to bring this artistic approach to any kind of business. Also, we work on the another field, the second field of our company is talking about music branding. That is how we bring music to the environment of the company. Let me give an example. We have the Cacau Show and the Boticário companies as our clients, and they have around, each one around 2,000 something stores. And so we make the study of where these companies are, where these stores are, what do they hear in these places, how is this connection between employees, managers, clients, how we can boost the consume there inside the store, how we can make them loyal to that company, how can we make the connection of the two parts or the three parts if we consider also the employees in a warmer and a more stable way. And this has been evaluated in many ways, a lot of surveys, and we have been implementing a lot, boosting a lot of the sales. Also, the return on the quality of service highly increased. In Rio, I don't know if anybody here remembers what we have in Rio. So we have the machines where you sell the tickets, also all the communication with all the inside the trains. Zan is also the voice of the trains in Rio. And so we kind of also created a space that has a better quality of life for Cariocas, the people from Rio. So this model, we are, guess what? I'm trying to bring to New York, right? We're all tired of this subway here, and it will be amazing if we don't anymore hear yelling people in that crappy speaker saying that the train is broken or whatever. So our work starts from what we communicate. Instead of somebody yelling something that is a problem, we are all stressed in the train. Everything comes through communication that is a warm message. It's like, dear passengers, I'm sorry to say this or that. So you say the same thing, but in a different way. The airports in Brazil, they all had, I don't know if you guys remember the very old lady that used to say the flights like that. Yeah, it's not like this anymore, right? So each airport has a different voice from a different personality in Brazil that is saying, queridos passageiros, infelizmente as condições climáticas não nos permitem voar agora. Voaremos em dentro de alguns minutos. It's different to say the airport is closed forever, you fight. Right? So instead of saying this, we have like different approach for the same communication, but with a tone quality that is different from special speakers that we put in special places. Also in between we have special music, special sound. Train also, everybody is going to interact with the clients, so we have workshops for everybody. We kind of increase the quality of also of work with that for all the employees that are there, and they are happy to participate. It's amazing to see how the workshops go. Also, all the CEOs, they are the first workshop we do is with the CEOs because we need to understand what the brand is wanting to communicate, what are the new projects and all that. After that, we go for the marketing team to work for, let's say, the advertisements in TV, in radio, and whatever they want to do. So we kind of invest also in the recognition of the brand. So for example, if you say Vivo, the telephone company we have in Brazil, that is also our client. I don't know if you can, well, my presentation was full of sound. I hope one day I can show all the sounds for you guys. It is like, so when you hear like Vivo saying, oh, 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 Vivo, you remember this message? Remember the advertisement on the TV? So that was one of the message that Vivo was delivering. One of our works, like the sonoric sound, the sonoric logo, beside all the interference we do in Vivo's store around the country. Our third field of business is the artistic branding that we just launched. It's something similar to what we are doing here. That is like we develop projects for artistic sponsorship for companies. So let's say that we had some festivals promoted also by Vivo, by Telefônica, by Banco do Brasil, by Bradesco Bank. So we had some projects that were funded in the past by these big brands, and they are also supported by the laws, the cultural laws we have in Brazil for deduction, tax deduction. So we also develop projects and strategies for this kind of companies to invest not only in themselves as sound branding, but also in their artistic experience with other artists. So our goal here, finish my talk a little bit, is to bring some Brazilian warmness to the world, not only to New York, but to remember that we are not machines. So it's like to humanize machines, humanize treatment between clients and brands, and to make this place sound better. That's what we're going to do,
So-
hopefully.
About a year ago or so, so are people buying the story? How's it going? I mean, how are the Americans, the New Yorkers, are they saying we need that? We need that more? How's it going?
There is not one person that I present the projects that they say, no, we don't need that. There is not one person that can say, no, the world is sounding super fine, we are super good, we don't need that. The things that a sound project is something that takes the time because you need to first to make a huge study of the brand, of the clients, of the employees, of the environment. And so we go to the creative process, that is like creating what is the strategies we do for this, for that. And so the implementation, that the diffusion and training all the employees and changing the stores and doing all that. And so the fourth part is evaluating how the thing went. So a process like this takes some time, like takes around 2 years to get complete around this.
Have people contracted you yet, or you started the project?
Here in the US,
Yeah.
we haven't finished, well, we just got one of the contracts here, but it's a Mexican company. That's what was something interesting, because a lot of companies here in New York, they don't have business in the US. So we decided in the end, I'm going to Spain now to have a business there, and now in Mexico, I'm going to be more interested than what I thought it would be. So that's it. Okay, thank you.
I have a client that can use sound on their website when they first open it up.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like a little Brazilian sound to it.
Brazilian sounds so interesting. Well, anybody I'll start with the audience. Any questions, any thoughts? Yes, sir. I think in the back, yes.
Hi, my name is Daniel. I work at Galva, trying to acquire other companies for education. Right. So the question that I always ask for these companies in your case is the concerns that you guys have on scaling your business, especially now that you're changing, you're moving to another country, you have another legislation, you have a bunch of other issues that you didn't have in Brazil, so it's all piling up, right? So can you guys comment on scaling?
Sorry,
Feel free to.
guys. So I have some challenges, especially regarding regulation. As I deal with data, you're following Facebook's problems now, right? Data in different countries is very diverse. The US is very liberal in a lot of things, especially in B2B. But not a lot for individuals. As you know, PII here is very restrictive. If you go to Brazil, your tax ID is almost public, your CPF is. So this is something that you need to not only learn, have this mentality ahead and tell and explain to everybody in the company about that all the time and how it's important to localize. So this is something that relates with me a lot. But also, sometimes it's hard to do business in Brazil. But what we learn is that the maturity of companies that at least our customers in Brazil are very high. And coming to the US, I thought that, okay, my product in Brazil is very relevant, but in the US will not be that relevant. There's so many players, they're so mature in technology. And so that was also, again, not true. Brazilian companies, especially banks, they're very well prepared to deal with data and data governance. In my case, I know that it's a little boring, but it's, in this case, compared to US companies, very, very similar. So I started to get free out of this complex that I used to have. And learning that actually there's a lot of good things in the private sector going on in Brazil that are very similar with the US.
Tiago, related to that, one thing I was thinking is, what you created, are there Americans that have done the same thing and you're competing, or is this idea because you, in a sense, out of necessity in Brazil, have something that's a unique product that even the US isn't there yet, or how is that?
When we started, we were the first ones in the world that did crowdfunding for a concert. We didn't even know the word crowdfunding at the time. We just knew that we need to get these people to buy. And when we moved here, I think it helped because they were starting, because crowdfunding at one time was supposed to solve all the problems in the world. Any problem that you had, you just crowdfund and then people pay and then it's solved. But we started seeing in Brazil, with just 2 years of previous experience before coming here, that crowdfunding is not the perfect solution for everything, and especially not for concerts. Because when you're going to start a crowdfunding campaign, you have like a timeline. It's going to end this date. You need to decide the pricing. So the ticket's going to cost this amount because you can't sell. You can in some cases, but you need to decide a pricing. And then there's this time the fan will put his credit card, but he doesn't know it's going to get charged until it's confirmed. So he can do that for different events. But in Brazil, it worked in the beginning because I think it works very well in crisis. That okay, there's no way that this can happen. We really need the money for this, and then it's only going to happen when I have the money. And when we started the company in 2013, here the first year was super difficult because all the artists that were talking about the crowdfunding say, oh, but what if the crowdfunding doesn't work? It will look bad for my artists in that territory. So as soon as we saw that, we created the demand button. And initially, the demand button was just to decide where the crowdfunding campaigns would happen so that the success rate would be almost like 100%, so we wouldn't go to that problem. And then we saw that with time, we saw that the demand numbers had a very precise correlation into how many people would show up at the day of the concert, what would be the pricing in terms of like how quick it grew. So, and the crowdfunding was basically just making it more difficult for us. And then we said, okay, we can use the demand, and then you can basically do the concert. And then that was in terms of like the scalability and generating revenue. And that was the second most difficult part. Was okay, we don't have the crowdfunding. Now we have like 100,000 new users every month. We're doubling that every month. It's going super well, but our revenue model doesn't work anymore because we're not selling the tickets for the crowdfunding. So the company is growing a lot in terms of users and people using, but how can we monetize that? And in Brazil, the company was growing, but the data that we were generating, we couldn't find promoters to use the platform. But as we grew, we were able to become the promoters because of the data that we're generating in Brazil. So besides the bigger companies that work in Brazil, like Tempo Fun, Live Nations, going there and do the big festivals, we were able to start doing all the concerts from this more scalable with local promoters that own the venue, who co-promote with them. So the business in Brazil is not the perfect scalable business because we promote, and promoting a concert is not something scalable. But the opportunity there so far, we see, okay, should we put that and get a fee from the concert being promoted by another person? Or should we promote because the data that we generated will make us make more profit? So still in Brazil, we're growing, but we're still in a phase that it's easier for us to promote. While here, it was impossible to compete with any promoter. It was super competitive, but the data part and the engagement of the fan didn't exist. So here, it's super scalable because we had to do that. We couldn't compete with other promoters, but they all started using our platform to see how many fans, to contact the fans, and then once at the beginning it was very tough to generate the revenue because of that. But as we got more users and more people, more promoters using it, we were able to starting our own ticketing system to sell the tickets for the fans that demanded. So that started generating revenue. We started charging the promoter and the artist to send the emails to the fans. We were just giving the data, and then we started creating like additional layers of information that they could access if they paid a fee. So but it was hard to get into that. It was not easy when we tell a summary of the company. It seems that it was so easy and quick, but it was like especially in the beginning, it was super tough. But I think that's the scalability and the differences are super big between Brazil and the US.
Another thing I hear is you got to stay agile if you want to survive, right?
That's not to mention that you actually end up helping celebrities that are not really known here. For example, celebrities in Europe that a few people actually get to know here because they went to Europe. and they like that artist, and you actually end up helping those artists be known here in the United States.
Actually, it was actually the opposite. It was some US artists
Uh-huh.
that wanted to go to Europe, but no promoter wanted to pay the fee that they were asking, because the promoters there, oh, I never heard of this artist, so I'm not able to pay that. And then because they had the fans demand, they say, look, if you pay what the artist is requesting as an artist fee, I have 5,000 people that demanded, and I have their emails here, and I'll click a button, and the ticket link for your concert will go automatically to them.
Got it, but I'm
So-
assuming you're generating demand as well.
Yeah. The fans are clicking on the button and
Generating
showing to the supply, which is the artist
Yeah.
and the promoter, that there's enough demand there. And this first tour was interesting because you will think that the artist, an American artist, it was like these 6 sisters from California. They had a YouTube cover channel that cover songs. They would go to the main cities in Europe, but they did 6 concerts in Germany. They played in Spain and Portugal, and they did Iceland, Denmark, and Norway. So we had to sell tickets in the Icelandic krone, Danish krone, set up our system to sell the local currency. And you never guess, if we're just thinking of like their number of people watching their videos on YouTube, or that those would be the countries. But those were actually the fans. There was, I think, there's this secondary market of the most needy fans. Not many artists go to Iceland, Denmark. They probably just go to Paris, London, Berlin.
That is genius. Congratulations.
So made in Brazil, huh? Creating this demand.
Yeah, it started in Brazil. Brazil is a secondary market. Not everybody goes to Brazil when they're touring. They first go to the US, to Europe, South America.
Fascinating. Questions? Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Actually, I have a question for her and for them.
Yeah.
So my question for you guys, actually for you first. I understand that English has different phonetics than Brazilians do, and I understand pretty well with both languages. Do you see any difficulties, or have you ever mapped out those phonetics to make music in the New York suburb? And even in the United States, there's different accents between New Yorkers and Midwest and West Coast.
Well, you're talking about work that I'm going to present next week in the UK, when I work on accents and voices. Well, the sound branding, when used on the subways, they are not only for music. Music is one part of the communication we do. So we're talking about tone, voice color, we're talking about the quality of the message, the quality of the diffusion, we're talking about sounds in some, like opening of the door, instead of that horrible beep that they do there. So there are a lot of different strategies that we do to apply the sound branding there. Definitely the accent is one of the things that we have in mind here, how to deal with pattern accent here that doesn't exist. That's what I'm improving next week in the UK. I'm creating an artwork, a video artwork with different accents speaking English. And this is beautiful, and how to put this together. This is something that we are going to develop once we get to the MTA here. How we're going to develop this project, I still don't have these answers. It is connected to my PhD project that is on this, Voices and Territories, and New York is the perfect place to do this. That's why I am here in New York, my research is here. So I don't have exactly this answer for you, but definitely it is a concern that we have. Thanks for bringing this up.
Before you go to the next one, is the MTA open and willing? Are you talking with them? Are they?
Still not.
Not?
Still not. Maybe we need to make like some requests, right? A demand, like sound branding in New York.
Maybe they figured they have bigger problems. I don't know.
So New Yorkers will be happy when the train is late.
Yeah, those will be smart. Do you have another question?
Yeah, so the second one is like, you said you hire for culture, right? Are you bringing this culture from São Paulo, Brazil, or you develop new culture in America, or you bringing the culture from American entrepreneurs? And I guess that's worth mentioning.
Yep. So our culture is actually from Florianopolis. It's a Manezinho culture. Guga he's actually our garoto propaganda. He's our main person. He promotes our company in Brazil. And hiring by culture, it's important for a company that is expanding, at least it's my experience, is that they will need to interact and show who you are, and this needs to fit the place that you're doing. Of course, you need to adjust a few things, your message, the language, a few things, but the cultural part is, if it is diverse, you don't have control of what is going to happen, and probably you'll have problems connecting with your current team. And I've tried first hiring just people who know the market and had more inclination to promote a company, a data analytics company in the US with that style. It didn't work. And I listened to Carlos Brito when he started bring Ambev to the US, and he said, forget about everything, just hire the same culture and they'll figure out something. And it was pretty much what I've done, and it's been successful so far. And I forgot about telling about scale. The thing about the US is the scale. When it gets there, it'll be fast. And then you need to be prepared. And this is the point that we are. We kind of plan for less customers that we're having, and this success might come with problems as well. You're used to have the Brazilian pace. It is a little bit. In the West, okay, you hit the ground, and there's one industry, they start to hire you, and then you need to figure out what to do.
Once you get scale, competition, I think, starts to appear very quick here in the US. And I think in Brazil we may be a little bit slower because of the barriers of entry. But here, I think once we started getting this distraction, it was super quick that a lot of different companies were doing the same thing, like the ticketing for the meet and greets. We had a lot of fans. There were customers that were buying tickets on our platforms, and they were underage. So they need to ask their parents to put the credit card to pay for the tickets for the events. And then we had a poster with the name of all the fans that demanded and make the event happening. And a lot of parents' names were showing up at the poster instead of the fans, because the parent would go behind it. And then we created a button called Share with Your Parent that will only show up when you need to put the credit card at the end of the checkout process. Because then they would just put the credit card, they would get on a message and an email, but all the picture of the fan, everything would still show up there. And like 3 weeks later, the competitor had the same share, but the share with your parents. So I think the competition here is super. I think you need to always be like trying to think ahead of the curve and trying to, because it's easier to start, but it's hard to keep. While in Brazil, I think it's super hard to start, but then I think it's easier for you to.
You find plenty of local Brazilians you can hire? Is that how you do it when you staff up, as you're staffing up? Or are you just finding that the Brazilian community is large enough, educated enough, smart enough to be part of your team? How do you staff?
Like in the beginning, for several reasons, because I think in our case, we have like 14 employees on the Brazilian office and the office here. In the US, we have 3 people. All the product and developers are in Brazil. So at the beginning, we had to focus in people with more experience, like exactly like you said, like the experience on the market here, connections. It's mostly business development and sales here. So we had to focus on that, and then with time, we started kind of adjusting into the culture of the company. We now have I think the first Brazilian that works for us now is now working for us here. But most of the time for us, it was not. It was basically more US, because it was already kind of not a downside, but there was one case that I was speaking with one guy and said, because we wanted to get to become a client for this promoter, and they said, I really want to use you guys, but because my CEO went to college and was a roommate with this guy that also has a ticketing company, the ticketing company is still working for us. So I need to work, because I really want to change with all these things that you guys are doing, but so you need the networking a little bit. It's to to have these people, especially on the sales and business development part?
Yes, for me, hiring is a huge challenge. We're hiring. We have 8 positions, some of you in New York, so please send your resume.
I have a question regarding the culture fit. So I don't think I'm hoping that culture isn't just hiring another Brazilian. I hope that it's being able to connect on values. And I'm just wondering how one sees that in a resume. Like, how do you see that? How do you know? Until the person sits, do you even know after the person sits in front of you?
No, not at all.
Right.
And definitely so my first approach was just to tell the story. We hired interns from American universities that want to have an experience in Brazil. We did that with Georgetown University, Stanford, Harvard, and MIT. So my first employee here is American, Georgetown University, willing to learn about Brazil culture. He connect with Excel partners, ask them, do you have a Brazilian company that I can work for? And Excel said, yeah, actually we invest in a Brazilian company. So they sent me an email saying, we have this guy, young fellow, just out of Georgetown. He wants to work in Brazil for a few months and learn the culture. So he went there, learned Portuguese. Within 5 months, he was training Brazilians in Portuguese. He spoke a little bit of Spanish before, but that was... So we lost him for our company right after that. He went back to...
Keep him home.
Yeah, it's not that easy. He came back to the West. He didn't want to, well, I had my Brazilian experience. I love you guys, but I need other, try other things. So he spent 3 years in another company learning customer success. And when I finally decided to open the office in the US, I called him and I said, now it's time. You will be my head of customer experience in the US, and you can't say no. And he actually moved from DC to New York, and he's our main guy here. Then we started to hire, but not based on risk. We didn't want the need of Brazil culture be something, speaking Portuguese was not a main thing for us. We didn't ask for that. But how to identify culture it's very difficult. We think about that all the time. We've tried several things. Playing Jenga with a candidate was one of the things to see if they cooperate and things like. We try several things to try to identify that. The most successful thing is to have more iterations with the person, to see them more time, to have more. First, we love at the first interview, let's hire. And that was how we approached first. And now it's more like we have 8 meetings to see if, okay, this is really worth it. And we ask them to do exactly what they're doing in the position. So if they're selling to a customer, they need to bring us a lead and talk to them and start to engage. So it's very practical tests, I would say.
Can I answer the combination of the two? Sorry, let me make a brief comment. So in our case, I would say that I was going to say about the escalation thing, exactly because we don't want to lose these principles of bringing this human side for technology, and that we also face this challenge of how to keep the culture and at the same time expand the business, right? Because what we have a TI team, IT, sorry. We have an IT team inside the company. Our brain is in Rio, but we work all over Brazil and now we're spreading to the world. So we had this challenge of how are we going to grow up without losing that sense of artistic and small and warm feeling for our work. So in the very beginning, she said, no, I don't want to go to the world. That was the beginning. And she lived here in New York some years, and she said, no way, New York's not for us. And it took me a while to understand how we were going to work, and we're still figuring out how to expand and at the same time not lose this kind of unique contact, because all our projects are a lot based on culture. When we're talking about culture, we're talking about being local. So And also because once the client enters the company, it stays because there are some maintenance that we do on the project, so we cannot have unlimited clients. So it's a kind of a combination with who we want to work with and who hires us. It's a combination. It's not you call us and say, okay, I want to make a sound branding for my company. In our case, nowadays, we kind of elect also the companies we are working with because we want to create a portfolio for us that is interesting, aligning with the goals of the company. We don't want to have 1,000 offices around the world. We don't want to have 1 million clients. We cannot escalate like this because that's the opposite of our principles. And I would say the sound branding for companies has this kind of aspect in our methodology. Let's say your iPhone is full of sound branding activities, the elevator here, the communication, the ambulance passing here. The sound branding is everywhere, so it's a lot of work, but we are focusing on being just millionaires, not billionaires. And decrease this a little bit.
Good to be modest, yes.
Yeah, so you guys talked a lot about growing teams, scaling teams, and all that. How do you adjust your team in Brazil with what you guys are doing here in the U.S., especially related to speed? That's one of the issues I have.
Related to?
Speed. Or, yeah, like speed. Here it's much more, you do it and you do it for tomorrow, whereas there it's like, it's holiday, not happening.
I think in terms of in Brazil, we're able to, I think we're very lucky because we have very good developers and product people. I think colleges there, they do a very good job, and I think it's super competitive, but in a way we never had this. The problem that we have is the different holidays. Sometimes it's a holiday here, and it's a holiday in Brazil, or the opposite. So look, I have a very important meeting tomorrow, but it's a holiday here, or the opposite. Sometimes they want me to, no, but it's a holiday here, so basically nobody has any holidays anymore because
How about carnival time in Brazil?
Carnival time we prepare with 2 weeks in advance for everything here in the US is going to be slower, or we make them do everything that's possible for people to ask us, so we have it ready. But I think in terms of the culture, I think it's part of the culture of the company. I think our employees and our partners were able to adjust very quickly to this the speed that we have here. And this started in Brazil. I think we were lucky to get a good team and hire the right people. So because there we never had this kind of maybe you can leave it for tomorrow and go slow. I think because of the way things happen on the company, we always had to be very quick and up to speed, even in Brazil, for starting.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that question? Do you guys have your employees? Do they have equity in the company? Because here in the U.S., that's also very different, right? The incentive.
Yeah. Yes, we have a deal for an equity plan, especially for the first employees and some mentors that started in the U.S.
Was that imposed by your investors or?
Yeah, they imposed kind of like a separated part of the equity for this employee fund, but if we want, it was not mandatory that we had to put people there. We only put people there when we saw that, oh cool, this is a key position and a key hire, so he's going to go into a vesting program to have it.
Yeah, this is the first thing. Nimble is one of the things that technology companies in Brazil are very similar with the US. So this is not a problem. Delivery on time is not a problem. I believe that it's not in my experience, at least. I don't know about our business. Definitely for technology companies, this is something that is very similar. Holidays is a challenge. 25 days off. It's a month. My calendar in Brazil, in the US is 10. So it are different. So if you combine both, it's very hard because there's legal challenges not to give them the holidays in Brazil. This is a real challenge, and I don't know the answer for that. What is your last? Oh, the vests. Yes, we have a pool of stock option. So usually it goes from 8 to 12%, and so now we're a little over 10% of the company's stock option. In Brazil, it's starting to get more common. for technology companies for strategic roles. In the US, you enter in a technical position that you already expect stock option. For hiring here, the first thing that I did is I need a stock option for hiring in the US. So almost all employees in the US have stock options. And we're starting to replicate that model in Brazil. Yeah, that's it. It is a little bureaucratic in a way. So stock option in New York City, it's challenging because there's a few ways to do it. You know how high the taxes are in New York. For bringing Brazilian executives to understand that is way better to receive stock option in Brazil. The tax is actually lower. Surprise there. So that's it.
Yeah, we found it more challenging for the stock options in Brazil because of the legal parts of owning stock of like a limited company, like a closed company in Brazil. And here it's easier to start, but then when you go into the taxes, sometimes the employee said, oh, but I didn't get any money, I need to pay all that, how this is going to work? So it's like a little bit more.
Everything's in reverse in these two countries. You're just going to be really smart to do both, I guess. So, I don't know, you want a final question, Johan? Did you say you want to say it? No.
I think that last conversation is a good segue into my question. My name is Johan, and I work with a venture capital firm that operates in Brazil. And I was curious, you guys touched a little bit on your kind of adventure trying to find investors in Brazil. I wanted to just ask, just in general, what your experience was, and maybe how it's different than your experience in the United States. What's similar, what's different, what were the challenges, what was good about it?
I think when we started, when we were doing this process with the digital accelerator in Brazil, they were the first investors. They put more kind of like, they get a share of the company, they put a very small amount of money, but they promise you that they will give all these networking and these connections and this mentor, you're going to be for 6 months there. And in our case, we put like a kind of like a trigger that they will only get the equity if we're able to raise money for the US for with international to start the company here. And I think they were more they believed in that more than us because it ended up happening and they accepted this trigger, which was not usually accepted by them. But when we started actually raising for the funds and not this digital accelerator part, I think in Brazil there was a lot of investors, and the process in Brazil was slow, and everybody would say you basically never would hear a no on the first meeting in Brazil. They would say yes, let's go, it's deal, let's wait, and then you would go, oh, here's the term sheet, and go, but they would say, oh, I need to wait for this, oh, I'm doing like renovation of my home, maybe that. So, or they would say yes, but then, and in the US, it was easier because the funds would say, oh, yes or no, or yes, let's continue, let's have another meeting, and the process was more streamlined, and you would know faster if it was going to be an investment or not. And the time, and I think with the investors in Brazil, the timing was more important too. I think you needed more kind of like a sales skills, because you need to go and say that, oh, we're going to San Francisco, we're going to present there, and there's going to be a lot of investors if you don't. And I think the timing, oh, we're going to launch this, or this product is new, or I'm talking with this artist that's going to release it. So it was more into the opportunity of the timing, while in the US, they were trying to see they were more like focused, okay, this is what you're doing, regardless of what's happening now, and see that. So I think those were the two biggest difference in terms of like the behavior of the investors.
Yeah. So in my case, as I said, I don't know what a term sheet was at the beginning. We raised over $70 million in our company so far. So we've been successful with that. So the way that we did first with Endeavor, VCs appeared. And I think it was a good trend in Brazil. So that was 2012, 2013. And we kind of decided which one we wanted as a VC of our company. So Axel and Mona X, I don't know if you know them. They both have done our first round. Then when we want to raise more money, we came directly to the US, and that was 2016. And in the US, we started, hey, 2016, remember, that was a tough year. We said, oh, we're a Brazilian company, we need money. And we went to several, oh, that's pretty cool, amazing company. All of your revenues in Brazil, we're not interested in. I hear that several times. And I started to, then there was a few funds, if you take like TPG Growth or Pincus, were still interested in investing in growth in Brazil, but that was just a few of them. And Axel wanted to do the full round. So we kind of, at that time, we need to say, if Axel invests, they will get a lot of equity in the company, and they'll pretty much tell us how much, what is our valuation, and we need to accept that. So we loved them, but we said no. And that was a huge decision for us at the time. We regret that, and then we know it was the right thing until we find an investor that led our Series B round. It's called Point Break. So they're invested in a lot of technology in the world. And we love them because they have business. We grew up to 100 engineers with 2 salespersons. And the Czech sales was the CEO of the company, my partner, Jaime De Paula, and me. So that was 2 with 100 engineers. So we didn't know business. That was pretty much a technology company. So we wanted someone who could help us with business. And everybody says that they will help you with business, and they probably will not. But we found one, the Point Break was one of the ones that said that no, we are going to help you with businesses, and they introduced us to several potential customers. And then we found a guy named Andrew Prozis, who was CEO of LexisNexis in the US, partner of TransUnion, for instance. He said, I want to invest in the company with Point Break, so we kind of created a pool of good investors. And right after that, Temasek joined the same round, the sovereign fund from Singapore. So that was my experience with
Temasek, I know their due diligence must have been intense, so it's very good. I think we're going to conclude with that. We now have beer, wine, pão de queijo, and it is, for some of us, don't work Friday, you know, it's a long 3-day week here, so it is time to call it quits. But I must say, I have learned a lot. If you distill all that, there's a lot of wisdom there. In many ways, that's reflective of the U.S. and Brazil, which is what the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce is all about. And I want to thank the 3 of you. It was a really fascinating discussion. And thank you, Leah, wherever you are now, and Pride Global, and Darren as their representative. It really was a grand pleasure, but we're not done yet. So thank you all so much.